Hey everybody, welcome to a very, very special episode of the On Film with Kevin McCarthy podcast. I am deeply honored to be able to share the conversations over the next 3 episodes where I'm doing a 3-part series for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, my most anticipated film of the year. And as anyone knows who listens to this show, I treat this show very much like DVD features. I grew up, and that's how I learned about movie making, was watching like Lord of the Rings DVD features. So I'm going to keep this intro quick. I won't keep you here long, but I wanted to give you a little bit of context leading into this conversation. So one thing to note, these interviews were done at a junket, a press junket situation. So my time with all of the different cast members and filmmakers is different across each room and interview that I did. This is not going to be a standard 30, 45-minute one-on-one podcast episode, which is why I wanted to give context to that. But over the years, I've been very dedicated to understanding and talking about the IMAX filmmaking that he's been doing since The Dark Knight moving forward. And if you've been to an IMAX 70mm presentation, which is absolutely the greatest immersive experience you can have, you've probably noticed over the years with films like Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet, and even Oppenheimer, that the aspect ratio of the image changes from the 1:4:3 usually down to the 2:2:0. And so that is because, and I've spoken to Mr. Nolan about this many times over the years, specifically I remember talking to him on Dunkirk about why and when he chooses to shoot sequences in IMAX versus a 35mm camera or a 65mm camera. So you look at Interstellar, for example, he shot 35mm and then he also shot 65mm IMAX. On Dunkirk, he shot 65mm and then 65mm IMAX. The reason why you'd have to do that was because the IMAX cameras were so loud, you couldn't actually get usable dialogue on the day when recording with an IMAX camera. So that's why you look at the boat scenes in Dunkirk when you're with Mark Rylance, a lot of those scenes are not IMAX sequences because they wanted to grab that dialogue for real on that day. With The Odyssey, they finally found a way to move that forward. And the reason they were able to do it, 1, they built a new camera that's quieter. I'll get to that shortly. And 2, they built a blimp system that goes around the camera. So now they can film intimate dialogue scenes in IMAX with the camera like 6 inches away from the actor. That is a revolutionary piece of technology. So you have the camera negative, which is 65mm 15 perf. And for people who aren't aware of the perforations, with an IMAX camera, you take a 65mm Kodak film stock and you run it horizontally through the camera, exposing 15 perforations of film real estate. So what that does is it gives you a larger quality image. So that compared to, as I was saying at the beginning of this piece, when he had to shoot films with a mixture of formats, the 65mm 5 perf and the 65mm 15 perf, those are different quality formats. But now you have the entire thing in IMAX, so you don't have that shifting aspect ratio. It's completely continuous and relentless. What's interesting, and I want to mention David Keighley and Patricia Keighley, the film itself is dedicated to the brilliant David Keighley. He's somebody that I've known the name for so long. I met him a few times over the years. I was lucky to see presentations that he was working at. I met him at a Dunkirk IMAX 70mm presentation. I met him at an Oppenheimer presentation. David was one of the greatest filmmakers and collaborators that this art form has seen. And his wife, Patricia Keighley, who's absolutely remarkable, continues that incredible legacy that they both built. Now, the new IMAX camera, the one that's quieter, is called the Keighley, in dedication to both Patricia and David. David did pass away last year, and I was lucky to meet him, as I mentioned a few times, but he really did get to see this film all the way through in terms of the dailies, and Chris Nolan will talk about that in our conversation. So I just wanted to set that up for the audience. Now that The Odyssey is coming out, you can see that this is a fulfillment of a lifelong dream that Christopher Nolan and his incredible wife and producing partner Emma Thomas and David and Patricia Keighley have had to do an entire film in this format. So without further ado, I'm going to toss this over to my conversation with Christopher Nolan. When I come back, we'll talk about Matt Damon, who's also involved in this episode, of course, Odysseus himself. We're going to have another episode coming with some major actors and filmmakers and artists and actresses, including Zendaya, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Lupita Nyong'o, John Leguizamo, Himesh Patel. I mean, I'm so excited to share all of this. Without further ado, my favorite filmmaker working today, Christopher Nolan. And I watched it completely different the second time, so.
Oh, good.
It's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Wow.
I really mean that.
Thank you. Tell all your friends.
Yeah, well, I've definitely. Kevin McCarthy from On Film.
How come you didn't say that on camera?
I'll say it on camera right now. This is one of the greatest films of all time, and I genuinely feel lucky to be covering it.
Wow.
And sitting across from you. Having seen like a 70 mil of Lawrence of Arabia recently, and then watching this, it feels like David Lean in the way that like this is old school filmmaking, but through your eyes in the most beautiful way. I want to talk, this is a question I've always wanted to ask you, and particularly in this case when you're shooting the whole film in IMAX, you're negative, obviously, when you're filming on set. You have to think about the other formats this movie's going to release in.
Yeah.
So you have 70 mil with the 221, you have the 239 scope on 35 mil, you have the 190 digital IMAX, 143 here, also 143 laser. How do you know?
Well, and 240 and 185, for digital,
How do you know where the frame is for all of those sequences when you're shooting it on set, knowing that Cyclops will fit?
Well, it's actually, it's been an interesting evolution. I started working with IMAX first and mixing IMAX and 35, which is the mix between the very wide CinemaScope format and the 143 IMAX. That we started doing on The Dark Knight. And so we had to develop and look at the different ways we would approach that. And we had a lot of different thoughts and theories on at the time about whether we would reframe, shoot different shots, and everything. And over time, first with Wally Pfister and then with Hoyte van Hoytema, my director of photography, where Hoyte and I eventually wound up, we realized is we're framing within the ground glass, we're protecting everything for the widest aspect ratios.
Wow.
But we're really not looking at the two-dimensional framing as much as we're positioning the camera in three-dimensional space. So we're moving the camera closer to be closer, we're moving it further back. We're always thinking about what's the relationship between the physical placement of the camera. So it's more of a three-dimensional idea of camera blocking and saying, what's the point of view? Are we looking over this character's shoulder? Do we want to be closer to this character or to that character? Not in terms of frame size.
Wow.
And that's been an evolution over the years. We sort of call it like following the ball. It's like you're just putting the crosshairs on the information that you're giving the audience and not looking at it as pictorial in the same way. And the reason is when you watch, a 70 millimeter presentation, widescreen like that, you're filling the peripheral vision with the edges of the screen. In 70 millimeter IMAX, you're also filling the top and bottom of the peripheral vision. But really the key information wants to be centered. And so rather than thinking in terms of a geometric, two-dimensional compositional frame, we tend to think in terms of a three-dimensional relationship between where the camera is and where we want the audience to be in relation to that. And that's developed over, I've been doing this for sort of 20 years now. And it makes for a very, very adaptable way of working.
It's incredible. I want to talk about Argus because to me, I think animals give you so much information about a character. Like I know who John Leguizamo's character is because of the way he treats animals. I know who Odysseus is because of the way he treats animals. And I wanted you could speak about the idea of what animals give you as a filmmaker in terms of vulnerability for characters and learning about who they are. I know you're a dog owner. My dog's named Murphy after Interstellar. I call her Murph all the time. She's a little Westie. But dogs have a special place in our lives, and I'm wondering what they do for you as a storyteller.
Yeah, I mean, I had never had a dog growing up. I've never had a dog until the last few years. And after we got a dog, it was right as my kids were going off to college, and they'd always ask for a dog earlier on, so they were pretty annoyed that we got one as they left. But they loved the dog as well. But then, looking at the Odyssey and looking at this incredible moment with Argus, which I won't spoil for the audience who hasn't yet seen the film and doesn't know the poem, but that really hooked me in. I mean, there's something about the emotionalism, that our relationship with animals. It's the ultimate homecoming story. This idea of animals not being able to communicate, obviously, in the ways that we do as people, but that they can show loyalty or affection or love or something that's very important to us emotionally. And something that Homer just baked into this text. It's a very powerful part of the story. And we work with a lot of animals in the story. That, having all of the sheep in the Cyclops cave, which is partly, a story point. It's partly, that's something established from the poem. But, we shot in a real cave with real sheep. They were excellent performers. They were really, really good. But there was something about having life around us, and part of that made the horror of those moments and things, and more palpable.
Yeah, it's interesting how I love the sound of the bees and how it sustains, almost like that D note in The Dark Knight. It was really wonderful sound design. I just thought you did a brilliant job with that.
Yeah, well, just real life. I mean, we turn up at that location and there's a literal curtain of bees that pass through. They didn't sting often.
Okay.
They're ground bees.
Did you get stung?
Only once or twice in a couple of weeks. I mean, they really were. They didn't particularly sting unless they got trapped. And some of the actors, sometimes they get trapped, down a collar or something, and they panic. But yeah, we'd sort of pass through this curtain of bees, and that buzzing was just there at the entrance of the cave the whole time, and it just felt this really, really disturbing somehow.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of George Cottle. I think that the work he does with you is remarkable. When I was growing up, I remember seeing Return of the King. I know he didn't work on that film, but there's a scene in that film where the elephants are lifting people off the ground during the fight. And I remember having tears in my eyes because I was geeking out so much that it was so epic that I called them nerd tears. And when I saw The Dark Knight and Jim Wilkie and that truck flip, that brought those back. And then the Lystragonians sequence, when that guy is thrown into the tree and breaks, I felt like I was that kid again who discovered movies. Like DVD features were everything to me. Right. I used to watch your Dark Knight DVD features about how you did the truck flip. Do you have shots in cinema for you that have made you feel that way? That you've that geeked you out so much, you just had to know how it was done? Like a specific moment, you're like, I want to know how that was done.
I mean, so many, where do you even begin? But I think probably the ultimate one for me is still that point of view shot in the first Star Wars that George Lucas made, where they approach the trench and fly into it, and that's a baffling shot that you have to look at very, very carefully to figure out that there's a little flash cut, there's a whiteout that connects the two shots, but it's just an extraordinary and visceral moment in cinema. I mean, that's just one of many, but that's certainly one that's always sustained.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I want to talk about Bill Irwin. I remember seeing Interstellar and learning about how you made TARS and Case, and just the voice of it and also the physicality of it is just remarkable. And he brings a humanity to Cyclops in this movie where I felt bad for him, for the character, but it's almost like Jaws, where I don't think the shark is the villain, I think the people are in a way, because there's something about they're going into this cave, they're bothering this monster in a way. But Bill brings such a beautiful, grounded humanity to him. Can you speak about the difference in directing him in the Interstellar sequences versus here?
I mean, well, the similarities, first and foremost, were that, I mean, a lot of people don't know about Bill is he provided the voice for TARS, but he puppeteered TARS and Case throughout that shoot, all over the world, including, in the water in Iceland and up on the glacier and stuff. I mean, just an incredible job of making physical, the movements of this. And the voice, indeed, is all recorded on set. He's all, as it was done. He was a real performer there. So when trying to figure out how to maintain the tone of the film while taking on something as fantastical as Cyclops, Bill was really one of my first calls, because I knew that we were going to need every different technique in the book, from puppetry to animatronics to computer graphics and everything. But I knew that I needed a performer at the heart of that. And one of the first things that I showed him was a painting by Goya, one of the black paintings of Saturn eating his children, and it's a horrific image. But one of the things that's really horrifying about it, we talked about it a lot, is that the blankness of the expression. That this is not a monster. Nobody thinks they're a monster. And that's what actually makes it most frightening, is that from the monster's point of view, they're not monsters. We're irrelevant to them, and that's what's really scary. I've got a lot out of the films of, my friend Guillermo del Toro. One of the things he's taught me in his films is that a monster is never just a monster. And talking to Bill about it, and Bill was on the film for months and months, even though it's one sequence. But I needed him there in the planning stages to be part of that. I needed him to come back as we executed on set, et cetera, and into post-production. But really, it's about giving individuality and validity to that creature as a character. Then it carries more weight. It means something in the story.
I agree. Before I wrap up, I have to show this to you. 20 years ago, You do your first IMAX test ever on the Prestige with Christian Bale's fingers, and
Indeed.
That was obviously a game changer. I know you worked with David and Patricia early on with The Batman Begins and kind of blowing that up for IMAX.
Yeah.
But 20 years later, you really fulfill David and Patricia's dream with getting every frame shot in IMAX film. I also have my Memento tickets from when I was a kid, too.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
I wanted to ask you just real fast, dedicating the film to David Keighley.
Yes.
And just how he's a collaborator, he's a filmmaker, so is Patricia, and they're both so important to film.
Yeah.
What does that journey, those 20 years, mean to you?
It means the world. I mean, David was able to finish his work on the Odyssey in terms of printing our dailies and improving everything before he passed. But he's been my IMAX mentor for the 20 years in which I've been doing it. And I was thrilled that IMAX decided to name the new cameras that have been built after him, so that's known as the Keighley now. It's obviously there's a melancholy to screening the film and seeing the dedication. And knowing he can't be with us to share that.
But he is here.
But he is here, and he was so proud of the work he was doing on it, and so committed to the film. And he died fully engaged in what he loved doing and dedicated his life to. And that's it's really a wonderful thing.
Well, I'm so happy you two had a partnership because it changed the way I watch movies.
Well,
so. Thank you so much for the conversation, and I'm sure you recognize this. I bought this when you mentioned it on 60 Minutes because, it was incredible. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed doing that 70mm tour.
It looked very cool.
The projectionists were so incredible. Like
That's
a lot of
great.
young people.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, it was
That's
wonderful.
Great. Well, glad you did it.
Yeah, congrats.
Thanks, Kevin.
Pleasure talking to you.
Really good talking to you.
All right, I want to say thank you to Christopher Nolan for joining my show. What an honor to speak with him for, as I said, one of the greatest films of all time. All right, moving on now, Odysseus himself, Matt Damon. Earlier in the year, I sat down with Matt and Ben Affleck for the movie The Rip. And at this point, I had already seen the prologue for the Odyssey. And for people who aren't aware, Nolan usually releases a prologue for his films, like The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. You'll go to a theater and you'll see like the first 5 minutes or a cut version of 5 minutes of a sequence. And the Trojan horse scene was the prologue for the Odyssey. And so I'd already had joked around and geeked out with Matt Damon at that particular press junket for the movie The Rip, the Netflix film that they made. But we also talked about the blimp system and how they quieted the camera. Because remember, Matt Damon also worked with Christopher Nolan on Interstellar and Oppenheimer. So he's been around those original loud cameras. And I do want to mention, in the Odyssey, they're still using the loud cameras too. It's a mixture between the original IMAX cameras and the new Keighley cameras. The difference now is the blimp. The blimp is able to quiet it so they can get the more intimate sequences. So I spoke to Matt Damon all about learning how to shoot the bow. Also, this incredible mirror system they created for the actors to be able to see each other around this large, massive blimp system. Here's Matt Damon and I talking all about the hardest film he's ever made. Mr. Damon, pleasure to talk to you.
Mr. Damon, listen to that. Wow.
I mean, what a film. I feel privileged to be here covering a film that I think is going to be one of the greatest in the history of cinema.
Thank you.
And I imagine that you felt that while you're shooting it. Seeing Lawrence of Arabia in 70mm and then seeing something like this feels like an old school film. Does that mean something to you, knowing that this could be that film for our generation?
I hope you're right. You never know how things are going to be received. The experience was just the greatest I could have ever asked for, because it was so challenging for everybody, and that was what my big takeaway was. Like, I've never been pushed that hard, but I could look around at every department, and everybody was getting pushed, and there was this incredible energy I think we drew from one another. Watching, we were all experienced enough to know that what was being asked of us was basically everything we had and a little more. And I got so much from watching other people working that hard that it pushed me. And it was this incredible just team to be a part of. I mean, the idea, it's obviously this epic, and it's the story's been with us for 3,000 years, so it's this foundational story. But Chris wanting to do everything in camera, everything practical, and try to do it all on IMAX. And so the experience of shooting it was as the weeks were going by, and because we didn't know if we'd be able to do it all in IMAX, we were going to try. But you'd get another week under your belt, and you'd be like, all right, like first of all, like, did we just do that? And then secondly, like, eventually it started to dawn on us, like, I think we're going to do this. This is going to work, you know. It was just very exciting. It felt I can't believe that we got to be the ones to do it.
I want to nerd out with you about the Trojan horse sequence and filming the sequence inside the horse itself. Can you speak about what that, were you enclosed completely?
Yes, yeah.
Can you speak about what that looked like? I mean, was it as we saw it on screen?
Pretty much exactly as we saw it on screen. And what I love about Chris is I asked him before, because I'd seen the horse and the design, because I saw it on the beach, and we were shooting at Troy, and we were about to go the following week to shoot the interior of the horse. And I said, hey, I'm really excited to see how, what you have planned for the inside of this horse. I said, how are you going to do it? And he goes, I don't know. And it's a great, so why Chris is so brilliant is he knows all of the elements that he's going to need, right? And he is on top of every single detail, absolutely every detail. But there's a looseness to the actual capture moment, to the filming, that is about the freedom to. So it feels like an independent movie, but with all of the heft of a big budget studio film. And at the end of the day, it was like cram into a horse with all these guys, and with Chris, and with Hoyta, who was operating the camera.
And you're closed in.
And they shut the door of the horse, they seal us in, and we just start getting all the shots that we need. Yeah, it's about him and Hoyta understanding visually, what that is, what the moment is, and what exactly what he wants to capture to tell the story the way.
Absolutely incredible. I want to shout out a couple people like George Cottle and Keith Davis.
Yes.
But Bill Irwin.
Yes.
You obviously worked with him on Interstellar. He was Tars and Case.
Yeah.
Can you speak about the difference? I know it's obviously a different character with the Cyclops, and I don't want to give too much away about the secrets of how that sequence was done.
Yeah.
But can you talk about your relationship to Bill on the set of Interstellar versus the set here, and kind of what that looked like for you and what that gave you to have him there?
Bill is such a generous actor, and Bill was with us in the cave the entire time we shot. And he was doing voices, and then he was also, by the way, when he was shooting his section, I mean, his whole body is painted blue, and he's essentially naked, running around these hillsides in Greece. He's just a remarkable performer, and how he uses his body and his clown background and how he uses his voice. And, Bill was, that cave was up a mountain. Like, Bill was hiking up there every day in order to just give us vocal work that we could react to. Like, he's a remarkable actor and generous actor and performer.
I think the physicality of this character is incredible. And you're an actor that I don't see Matt Damon on screen. I see your character. And there's a way he moves, but the details of him plucking his bow, and can you speak about how you found how you wanted to move with that and how you wanted to pluck it, and the stringing? It was just such a cool thing to watch.
Yeah, that's all from Chris in the script. And I spent a couple months, I wanted to learn how to speed load the bow. Where Chris wanted me to learn, I should say. So they gave me a bow, and and I live in Brooklyn, so it's not great archery country. So I sat in my living room, and if I was watching a show or a movie or something, I would just sit there and speed load the bow. Oh, wow. So I get thousands and thousands of times to just start to get that feeling and the familiarity with it. Because it's obviously what he's known for.
Yeah.
But those are those little weird things you learn. Acting's fun. Sometimes there's just a little tiny thing you need, and it's some bizarre thing that you'd never learn it that way normally. But
it's incredible.
Yeah.
I'll end on this. Hoyta is one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. I mentioned Keith Davis as well. The focus pulling, I don't even know how it's possible when you're on these sequences.
Keith's strike rate is better than anybody in the history of IMAX. He's amazing. He's amazing.
Can you speak about how the blimp and the mirror system worked? Because I want people to understand this. Like, the camera's so large that you had sequences where you couldn't stare into your other actor's eyes.
Right.
how did this mirror system work, and how did that affect the way you emotionally emoted, not having them physically right there rather than just seeing them?
Yeah, it's a great question, because that was our question going in, because when he told me we were going to do the whole thing in IMAX and that they built a blimp, the first thing I said was, well, the eye lines are going to be wrong. Right? So if here's your lens, if you and I are doing a scene and I'm shooting your close-up, and I'm the actor playing opposite you, I'm going to put my face as close to the lens as possible so your eyes are close to the lens, so that the camera gets both of your eyes. If there's a blimp around this giant IMAX camera, then I'm over here. Now, what this is seeing is not both your eyes. It's almost like a profile like that. So the eye line is wrong. So Chris devised this mirror system, whereby I could be the actor off camera for you, but I would look into a mirror that was here, that would come back to a mirror that was here, and you would see my full face right there. So you'd still feel the actor and know that they were in the room with you and feel them breathing. They were just as close to you, but you'd play the whole scene to a mirror that was right next to. So all those scenes with me and Annie at the end, everything, we're looking into a mirror, and the incredible thing was, you didn't feel that at all. Like, I could hear her, I could see her, the scenes were very intimate, and looking into that mirror, like even in my memory, when I think back to shooting those scenes, I don't and I asked Annie about it, I was like, I don't remember it being a mirror.
Oh my gosh.
We were really connected, and I was like, I remember that as looking, and she goes, yeah, me too. So the mirror system really worked, but that was the hack that Chris came up with to make us able to shoot in IMAX.
Wow. Well, congratulations to you. The Argus arc is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. You can learn so much about a person through how they treat an animal.
Amen.
And I think that's a beautiful piece to the story.
Saying that to a guy who has 5 rescue dogs, so I appreciate it.
5?
I do, yeah.
Well, I have a dog named Murphy after Interstellar. I only have one.
Do you really? Oh,
yeah.
that's amazing.
She's a little Westie.
You have a little Murph.
You have 5?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, man. Congratulations.
Thanks,
to you.
man. Yeah,
What an
appreciate
honor
it.
to chat with you for a film like this.
Thank you, man. They made my day.
You should be very proud. All right, so this is Murph, by the way. I want to mention, obviously, you saw Matt Damon and I talking about dogs just now at the end of the interview. This is Murphy, named after Interstellar. I also told Christopher Nolan that, but I wanted to give Murphy a little shout out and thank you all for watching this episode. And I'm really excited for everybody to see the film. If you have a chance, definitely try and see it in IMAX 70mm, but don't let it deter you. So I'm going to put her down now. But yes, I'm very excited for everybody to see the film finally. Thank you for tuning in to On Film with Kevin McCarthy. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get them. Just like and subscribe, and please share the show with your friends.